copper. And he's got a little round piece over there with a little bitty hammer, and he's pounding it out like so. Good morning and welcome back to the channel, Grand Columbia, and welcome to another Coffee Time Live. Today we're going to have a special guest. The format will be different. You may see on the screen things will be different. Trying a software that I tried 4 or 5 months ago. Hopefully I can make it work. It'll have some new features, but there'll be things that I won't be able to do. Hopefully everybody can hear me. One of the things that can do for me is consolidate the chats, but let's get on with it. Okay. Looks like a beautiful day. It's currently about 76 degrees, a little overcast. As of this week, I'm unable to show you the video outside. Hopefully I can set that up in the future. I'm going to have a high of about 79 and a low of about 64, which is pretty much the common theme ever since they started giving these temperatures out. And if you think about it, week after week, it's within a few degrees. But maybe a year or two ago, we had some commenters talk about how much hotter it is in actuality from what I'm always saying. Well, I give you the temperature week after week. It's what I'm saying. When people come to visit, they may get a couple days where it's unusually hot, but out of 365 days, that's like a blip on the screen. And that's how that goes. So you want to be careful with what you read in forums and things like that, not just for temperature, but for other things. A short visit does not make a whole picture. Let's see, Spanglish Angler. Good morning, mi amigo. Back in Tampa Bay for the last week, but traveling back to the finca in Cordoba, Quindio, on Thursday. He sent me a few pictures, and it's been kind of scrambled. I actually would like to show those. He bought a farm here, not far from Armenia, and it looks pretty nice. I want to get some more details, maybe the price or terms or whatever, because people are always asking about that. I'm actually considering going to my bank and seeing about a mortgage at this point for a little country place. All right, there's my chat. Owen, I can see you. Audio, video, good. Thank you very much. And Spanglish Angler is still on that dead channel YouTube, but I can also see that on the screen, which is awesome. I don't have to go back and forth and the setup and all that kind of crap. Chad, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Rumble. All right, let's see. A quick update on the coffee. Everybody's asking what's going on. We want to buy your coffee. I can't sell it till I get bags to put it in, because the bags to export it have to be a very particular format. It took me forever with back and forth with the powers that be, the cooperativa entity, the Coffee Federation, because it all has to be approved. You have to pay for certain things. Your coffee has to go, every batch has to go to a laboratory to be tested, to verify its origin, verify its quality, verify that it's a variety. You say they're very particular in exporting coffee. So I got that all done. It's been at the printers. February 1st was supposed to be the very last day that I would get it, if not before, but not to exceed February 1st. Yesterday, February 1st, they told me it's looking like February 14th. It's very frustrating because the outlay has been tremendous and there's zero income from it. But that's how stuff goes, right? So I appreciate a lot of interest in the coffee. And once you get it, I know you're going to love it, because this is unusual coffee. In Colombia, I think I mentioned this before, but in Colombia, you can go to any cafe, you can find all over the place bags of coffee, say geisha or bourbon rosado or whatever, like a premium exotic coffee. Keep in mind, because I ran some tests on this actually. Within Colombia, there's no restrictions at all. I could take any coffee, I could pull it off the grocery shelf, put it in a bag, label it whatever I want it to be, and sell it. No issue. It's exporting outside of Colombia where they become strict. Inside, I don't know if they even have a mechanism to enforce it. So they don't care. So I could make anything, put it up on the shelf, and call it whatever I want. I went down to a pueblo here in Quindio and bought a bag of geisha and another one, I forget what it was, and brought it back. And I learned about this, so I still had those. So I opened them up and we had them checked out. They were just coffee. They're just your run-of-the-mill coffee. So you want to be careful about that. there is a difference in the kind of coffees, the varieties that I'm selling, and I'm not selling any kind of regular coffee. Of course, right now I'm not selling any kind of coffee, and it's very frustrating. As soon as possible. Friday, I had to go to the Chamber of Commerce. This is like pouring salt in the wound. I had to go to the Chamber of Commerce to renew my license, my business license, and I've yet to do any business. All right. I've got a couple more things, and then I have a guest. He's not logged in yet, but I'll be keeping my eyes open for him. Oh, there he is. He's waiting on me. There. All right. He was waiting on me. So he's somebody that lived in Ecuador for a number of years. He was there when I was there. I think he arrived shortly after I did. And he just recently moved here. And the reason I wanted to get him on here is he's been going through the visa process and he's had a couple problems with it. And as I heard what they were, it turns out that the problems are not real problems. Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that when the time comes. I mean, problems for him, certainly. All right. The school, I've been shilling this school because they desperately need help. This is going to be in Spanish, but this little girl from there is, what are you doing? Hold on. Please turn your sound off.
Okay.
All right. I guess I accidentally gave him control. I don't want to bring him in until it's time to bring him in.
That's okay.
Please, quiet. I'm trying to do this and I can't concentrate. All right. Where was I? Oh, this school. They're desperate for some help. There's a couple people that are trying to do some fundraising in the U.S. and it's greatly appreciated. Don't know what's going to come of it. Possibly nothing. But they did this video. It's in Spanish, but I've talked about this for the past couple weeks. What's interesting about the video, and it's only about a minute, is she walks through and she points out some of the specific things. So the language doesn't matter. You'll be able to see like the big crack in the wall, the roof that's caving in, things like that. So hold on here. Let me locate it. And here we go.
Buenos días, olimpiquistas de corazón. Magali Nazarí. Aquí le muestro la otra parte de la escuela, que el techo está deteriorado, el piso está dañado, las paredes hay que como pintarlas un poco más. Y mire como eso está como algo rotico por ahí, algunas partes. Y acá tenemos los pocos pupitres que tenemos apenas por aquí. Mire estos como están todos dañados, vean. Y esos son apenas los pocos pupitres que tenemos. Y acá hay otro salón que está también dañado, lo mismo. Mire eso allá como está roto. Y en los techos que le pueden entrar agua por ahí. Y el piso que falta como pintarlo un poco. Y esos agujeros que hay, los demás.
¿Qué lugar es ese?
Este es otra cocina que han hecho por acá
de la cocina de leña.
De la cocina de leña. La hornilla está dañada, esto de pronto puede servir, pero falta mirarlo otro poquito más. La puerta, el techo, las paredes, que hay que arreglarle. Y este baño que está dañado, la bañera que está, el baño está algo roto, bañado. Y toda la...
Okay, kind of self-explanatory, and I don't know if you saw in the background, the cracks in the wall, there's more than that one you saw in the beginning. There's a number of them. And one of the walls, there's concern that it might even collapse. So there's definitely a need there. All right, what else I got? Oh, I may do, some of you will remember months and months ago when I did a trial run on this software for maybe 2 weeks, that I was toying with this ad read, the possibility of an ad read to try to generate some income. This is that software, and if I get a flag that pops up that says I'm eligible for something decent, I may stop and do like a 30-second ad read. Bear with me, it's as much of a experiment as it is anything else. Well, the channel's got to pay for itself, and the coffee was supposed to support it. Maybe one day that'll come through. Let's see. Turtle with a 25% tariff. Well, not yet, but you never know. Gil, good morning from Northern California. How you doing? Spanglish Angler. I will send you more information about the place this week in a short video I put together with information. That's awesome. I know people will appreciate it. Chad, I'd love to find a way to assist with this. Lauren, I'll reach out soon. Okay, and let me put up on the screen here, at least for a moment. That's where donations are being collected. Okay, I think that'll turn off on its own. What else I got? Oh, I've got a feature here, one of the new features, that if you're somebody that I know and you've got access to my email or my WhatsApp, preferably my WhatsApp, you will be able to send me a up to 1 minute video clip with any question or comment. It won't be live. It'll be like a day or two before the day we actually run the video live. There'll be a link that you'll have access to. You can go in and make a video clip. It's pretty simple. You just go in, enable your microphone and your video, and click record. Now, you can't do it on a cell phone. It's got to be a laptop or a desktop. I asked Turtle this morning to, run through it just as a test. So there's nothing, it's not going to be beautiful or anything, but it just is a test as a favor to me. So let me show you the idea of it. Let's see. Here's this first one.
It counts down from 5 to 1, and it should be recording now.
And here's the second one.
Okay, this is recording 2. I just wanted to see how it went forward, etc. So can you see me? The top of my head. Here's the rest of my head.
So I think that'll be a pretty cool feature. Once we get rolling with it, maybe I can even expand it. It was initially set up as it will only function behind a paywall. So if you're somebody that subscribes on a particular platform, you would have access to it. But I also found I was able to turn that off. People that contribute, it's greatly appreciated. You're the heart and soul of why this keeps going. On the other hand, I've always wanted it to be kind of open to everybody. So that's the way that is. All right, what else we have here? Got the video questions, laptop. Next week I'm going to run this again. I'll have Dan back here. I asked Dan to take the day off because of this interview, and I didn't want to complicate the setup. So we're going to be doing the interview, but next week I'll be able to have guests from you guys. Then you're going to have to tell me who's willing to do it. Plus, I'll be able to have maybe 2 or 3 people at the same time to be able to kind of chime in. So I don't know if you're following me, but you'll come up on the screen, in the boxes, kind of like you see these all over, the YouTube and the Rumble videos, where kind of like a group conversation. So It may turn out to be a disaster the first time. What the hell? You got to try it, right? So we're going to do that next week. So I need a few volunteers. Send off my email. Where is my email? Takes a minute here because I'm not used to it. There's my email. So if you're interested in helping me experiment with this, send me an email and we'll get it set up for next week. George Gill, contribution. Thank you very much. I can't put it up on the screen, at least as of now, but I want to acknowledge that. Also, Steve, leave off the last name. I got the contribution yesterday and I very much appreciate it. All of them I appreciate because it's not like I get enough money to like go out on a shopping spree or anything, but I've told you in the past, I mean, one day I hope that's the case. One day it would be nice if it actually became some kind of supplement income. But from the beginning, it's always been to support, pay for the things, the subscriptions, the equipment replacement, the things that occur. And it's always held fairly close until recently, but the coffee will kick in. But you do me a favor because this is my hobby. Yeah, well, what would I do? I mean, it started out as one thing, but it's become important to me because I'm retired and I don't want to sit around watching TV. And so this is what I do. And if it wasn't for your contributions, I couldn't afford to do it because I don't make enough on my Social Security. I mentioned this the other day to somebody, but everybody I know makes more Social Security than I do. Even Turtle, we were having a conversation. He goes, well, you can afford that. You make more than I do. And so we compared it. It's like, no, he makes $200 more than me. I make the lowest of anybody that I know, which is okay. Here in Colombia, you can live on that. It's just, you can't really support these hobbies that cost money. All right, enough of that. So that's next week. Send off an email. Let me put it up again. And paywall, I mentioned that. Oh, yeah. I am considering something with a paywall. Last week, it kind of triggered an idea. There are certain things about politics here in Colombia. I'm not talking US or whatever. I'm talking here in Colombia. You have to be careful about certain things. There is freedom of speech. However, if it becomes, if it ticks off the wrong person, it can affect your stay here. I don't have any place to go. This is my home. I'm a resident here, but that residency can be pulled. And I'm not eligible for citizenship for another, I think, 3 years. So I have to be careful, even though I say certain things, there's certain information that I don't cover. And then some of the dating topics, there's certain things I just won't say in public. It's not that they're really bad, but, if you mention a particular story, an anecdote, whoever that person might be might hear it, and I don't really want that to be public. So I'm considering doing that. So it won't be live. It'll be a video where you would send in questions about something that I've mentioned maybe on the channel, something you have questions about that, like when I was talking about the gorillas in Cauca, for example. There's a lot of information I'd like to say. There's a lot of pictures and video clips I'd like to put up, because when you know the true story, it's a whole lot different than when you know what you see in the news. And I can't. So if I mention that topic, maybe you want to know more about that. Maybe you want to send me a question. Or if it triggers for me some question that I can't continue putting out publicly, maybe I'll just create a video and put it there. If you're interested in that, let me know. it would be behind a paywall specifically for the purpose of it not being to the general public. I can get away with things in this particular software by locking it up like that I can't in Rumble or YouTube or something like that. This is a different software program. Okay. Last thing. Oh yeah, that was the last thing. It'll be something titled maybe Coffee Time Uncensored, something along those lines. All right. So I've gone 20 minutes. I only planned on 15. So now we're going to bring in Hugh. Hugh is the Rose guy from Cuenca. He's known for that. He's going to tell his story. I'll try not to talk too much myself. Let me unmute him. Let's see. Yeah, it's all new to me here. See if you can unmute yourself. I think it's on. There you go. It's on your side.
Can you hear me?
Yes. I can't hear you well, so I'm going to let you pretty much run with it. So go ahead and introduce yourself. Talk about why you went to Ecuador, maybe places you lived in Ecuador. What made you decide to come to Colombia? I know you visited Colombia while you were living in Ecuador, maybe even prior to that. So kind of tell that story. And then when you get to the visa, I'll ask a few questions. Hit it.
Okay, that's great. Hey, listen, thank you, Lauren, for giving me the opportunity to be on the podcast today. Hello to all the guys and gals, wherever you are. And supposedly, I have met Turtle, but you know, as I gain in age, I lose the memory. So if I had a photo of him, I could probably remember him. But anyway, my name is Hugh Prather. I'm originally from North Carolina. I was born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I was an investment banker. In 2014, I started investigating moving to a country outside of the U.S. to retire. I knew I didn't want to retire in the U.S. So I first visited Colombia in 2014. And, Medellin, where I live right now, is so big that it was just kind of a little bit difficult for me to assimilate with, other expats. But, it's not that I have to be around expats, because I've been married to, an Ecuadorian woman before. I'm now married to a Colombian woman. But, when I went to Cuenca the first time, I stayed 3 months. And, it was easier for me to assimilate into the expat population. So I felt more comfortable. And then on top of that, I go back after 3 months. I was living in West Palm Beach. And I get this Facebook message from this girl that I did not meet during the 3 months. And she says, "Hola, Hugh, ¿cómo está?" So we had an online relationship, which I'd never had before, for like 6 months. And I said, "Bing, I'm moving to Cuenca, Ecuador." Well, moving to Cuenca, Ecuador, because of her, was a big mistake. But, it was the first lesson this gringo learned about, the Ecuadorian culture of women. And, I've made plenty of mistakes, believe me, over the past few years. So, I've lived in a number of different places in Ecuador. I lived in Cuenca for the most part. I lived in Cumbaya, Tumbaco, which is right next door, Loja for a little while. And I lived in Vilcabamba for about, 8 months maybe. But, in Vilcabamba, it's such a small town, beautiful small tourist town. But there was always 5 or 6 gringos that would meet every day at the same restaurant, at the same table, facing the park. And we'd drink beer all day long. Okay. Well, it got to the point probably about, I don't know, 6 months into living there, that I said, I've got to do something with my life. I just can't sit around and do this. I've always, wanted to create things, businesses or whatever. So actually, my first business as a distributor in Ecuador was for a beer, a craft beer that was being brewed in the Vilcabamba area. It was an American that's lived there for 35 years. I don't know how, or 40 years. I don't know how he ever got to Vilcabamba in the first place 40 years ago. But anyway, so I started distributing their beer. Their beer didn't travel well. So anyway, he's a good friend. And he said to me, hey, I've got a friend who owns a coffee farm. And maybe you should talk to him and start distributing this coffee. And so I did. And, I distributed his coffee for probably, I don't know, 5-6 years. Really, really nice coffee. Not as good as Lauren's, but good coffee. So anyway, during that period, I had met an Ecuadorian woman, and we decided to get married, and we were living in Loja at the time, and we moved to Cuenca. She had 3 children. And so I stayed married to her for 7.5 years. And I have a book, actually, that I wrote about 8 months ago. It's called Notes from Ecuador. And basically, it's for, don't want to discriminate, but it's for you single men who are looking to move to Colombia, Ecuador, any Latin American country, and the perils that you might face with the Latino women population. Okay, so the first business I really created was I bought a wine distributorship, and we were the only distributor in Cuenca and southern Ecuador that distributed 18 different Portuguese wines, and we had a couple from Spain. And it ended up that my ex-Ecuadorian wife, actually stole that business from me. She had the paperwork changed, and she made her son the president of the company. Now I don't know how she did this, but she did somewhere. She paid somebody off. But anyway, I enjoyed the wine business, and during that time, she was pretty much handling all of that. And I decided, well, I want to do something else. Okay, so I said, I've read a lot about Ecuadorian roses and how they're the world's best roses. And they are. Colombia is the #1 provider to the world of flowers. But they don't quite have the elevation and the latitude where the heads of the roses are a little bit smaller, and they're not quite as vibrant. All right, so Ecuadorian roses are grown at 9,000 feet, and you have 12 hours a day of light per day at my farm, which is right on the equator, and you just got perfect conditions normally. But let me back up a little bit, because we're going to talk about the visa process. Okay, so
let's go on with the rose business, and then we'll go to the visa.
Okay, that's great. So anyway, I contacted a owner of a rose farm. That's about an hour outside of Cuenca, and I went up to her at a public meeting, and I said that, what, I would like to try to sell some roses to the United States. And she says, that's fine. We'll set it up. So I started putting some posts on, some of the Gringo Post and Cuenca High Life. I started putting some ads there. And by God, I started getting some orders. But at that time, this farm would only ship 100 roses. All right, so that was their minimum. And I'm telling them, nobody in the U.S., without some exceptions, wants to order 100 roses. They want to order 12 or 25 or 50, So, and they kept telling me, oh, yeah, we're going to do that. And they never did. So I went out and I found the farms that could do it. And, I probably got 10 farms that I use, for different products, but primarily for roses. So anyway, I got excited and I put together a website, and I first named the company Ecuador USA Roses. All right. It's now Your Rose Guy, or The Rose Guy, with the website yourroseguy.com. And, I've experimented with a lot of other flowers besides the roses. But, recently I've decided I'm getting too old to do all of this. So I'm just going to focus on the roses. And we do have the world's most beautiful roses. I have so many hundreds, or thousands of testimonies over the past 8 years, which I've operated the business, with photos saying, oh my God, these are incredible. I visited farms in Colombia, and they produce beautiful flowers. If you want hydrangeas, you want to go to Colombia, get those from Colombia. If you want carnations, you want to get those from Colombia. But if you absolutely want the best roses, then you get them from Ecuador. And so I put together the website. I had an actual friend from Charlotte come to visit me and my wife in Cuenca, and he has a not artificial, but where they make them permanent flower shop. Okay, and he makes arrangements, and he wanted to visit some farms in Ecuador, and I said, I'm happy to do that. And he came down, and he had a friend who worked for one of the cities in California that has a float in the Rose Bowl parade, every year. And so anyway, it was like 4 months later, I'm getting an order for 8,000 roses for one of the floats for the Rose Bowl parade. And I did that for a few years. But, my main line of business is my minimum is 50 stems, okay? 50 stems to 100 stems, farm direct to any address in the U.S., okay, in 4 days, all right? They're packaged so well and they're hydrated so well that, when you get them, these roses will last anywhere from 12 to 14 days. That's if you take care of them like you should, okay? So the vase life is longer than anything you're going to get from a grocery store or from Sam's Club or Costco or, a florist, actually, because a florist is going to go through a wholesaler. And the wholesaler is going to wholesale them, going to put them in a cooler and let them sit there until they get orders. Well, ours go farm direct in 4 days. When you deal with a florist, you may be getting flowers that are already 8 days old, And, the farms are not sending their top A grade roses to the Costco's, to the Sam's Club, to the grocery stores, because they want to pay so little money for an Ecuadorian rose. All right. So anyway, I've been doing this for 8 years. I didn't know a thing about roses when I got into business, and I know plenty right now. I know what to do, what not to do.
Well, I thought it was interesting because what piqued my interest was the visa thing, but then I remember, the Rose Guy. I remembered that, and we got Valentine's coming up, so that's why it's like, well, go ahead and talk about that. But now we're going to talk about the visa thing. What made you?
Okay. Well, may I say one more thing about the roses? Okay.
Only one. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, this is regarding price and the website. All right. Is that okay?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. So right now, of course, it's Valentine's season. There are 8 days left for you to order from me, to get from Farm Direct to your home or, your loved one in the U.S. So let's say you ordered on the 10th in the morning. All right. We would ship out that night and they would be delivered Thursday. All right. If you order on Tuesday, they're going to be delivered on Friday. If you order any other day of the week, they're going to be shipped on a Saturday night or early Sunday morning and delivered on a Tuesday. Now, right now, for Valentine's, I have a special going on. 50 roses, any color except for red or pink or any bicolored roses for $90 delivered farm direct to your door. If you choose red or pink, then it's going to be $105, because red and pink are the most popular colors during Valentine's. My website, if you want to write it down, is www.yourroseguy.com. Okay, great. Fantastic. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so, obviously it's very busy right now.
What made you decide to travel to Colombia, possibly live here, and what happened with the visa?
Well, actually, I lived in Ecuador for 9 years, and so I was getting a little bored, and things were really changing in Ecuador. Ecuador, especially along the coast, has become very dangerous. Now it's mostly cartel to cartel type of homicides and everything. But this morning I read where a little baby was crawling alone in Santa Elena on a highway, and then down the road they found her mother shot in the head. So I mean it's very dangerous right now. So I have known my wife that I married on December the 5th. She's Colombiana. I actually met her over 9 years ago in Cuenca, and I visited her and her family here in Medellin numerous times. So we decided to get married on December the 5th. I came on July the 31st of this year. And so, I'm putting all the documentation together. I'm having to get, documents, what do they call it? Apostilled or apostilled, or how do they pronounce it, Lauren?
Apostille.
Apostille. And then delivered to me here in Colombia, a couple of documents. Well, okay, so I had submitted everything. We were ready to go. And then now this is what I was told, okay? And you and I, talked about this yesterday, Lauren, that on January the 10th, a new law went into effect that, for example, if you are an expat from the U.S., you have to have an FBI criminal background check. I understand that because when I moved to Ecuador, I had to have one. But the requirement before January 10th, is what they're telling me, is that I only had to have my criminal background check for the past 5 years, which I lived in Ecuador. I've been back to the U.S. in 9 years, 2 times, for about a total of 6 weeks. I had some surgery. So anyway, on the 20th of January, I get a notification, you've got to have this FBI document, and then you've got to leave the country by the 25th. So I ended up going to Panama. This would be Monday past, or Friday past. And they said, you can stay a couple days and then come back into the country. And that's what I did. But, that little trip of 3 days cost me $1,000, And some providers here want $400 for that FBI document. Now, Lauren gave me some information that's, where I can get it for less. But, that's the situation I have with the visa, okay? And then getting my M-class visa approved. So I've got to get that done,
Okay, give me a minute. I want to explain to the audience how that actually works. So bear with me here. Now, he arrived July last year, I think you said. So what happened was the people who were processing it for him, based on he had some decisions to make, didn't start it then. They started kind of at the last minute. And so what happens is you got 3 months free, and this is most countries. You got 3 months as a U.S. citizen here free, and in Colombia you can extend 3 more months. So you get 6 months. At the end of those 6 months, you are required by law to leave Colombia if you haven't processed some other visa. Well, they were just getting things gathered up by then, so he had to leave the country. When I was in Ecuador, I had to do the same thing. I went to Peru. It's kind of a pain, but that's what the law is, and that applies most of the world. Some are more strict. That tends to be the liberal end of the scale. So the other thing was, I think he got some bad information. The FBI check, if you live here for a period of time and you have not left the country, so if you're here on a retirement visa and 3 years later you go to get your new retirement visa, you don't have to get a new FBI check because you've been living here. However, if you're from another country, let's say he's from the US, but he's been living in Ecuador, at that point, you have to get the FBI visa, whether somebody told you did or not. You're going to have to get it because, all right, you were living in Ecuador, and maybe you have Ecuador information, but from Ecuador, possibly you went back to the US or another country, and who knows what happened. So they require, if you're from the US and you haven't been here in Colombia for a certain period of time, to produce that FBI report. Unfortunately, he got told wrong, and then he ran out of time. So that's what he's up against.
Right.
So what he has to do now is he can get online, he can get the FBI report, he can get it apostilled for about $104 and have it, all of that sent on a PDF file. They can do a translation for him here in the country, whoever's handling it. Turn that in, he'll be all set. That's actually routine stuff for the visas now in Colombia. We're reminiscing about the days before COVID when you didn't need much of anything because the U.S. Embassy handled FBI checks, they handled translations, they handled your retirement documents for verifying. So you came up with a passport and a printout of your Social Security, you were good to go. But sadly, it's not that way now. And so when people have certain experiences, I like the audience to kind of hear about it. In your case, they were somewhat avoidable, although your decision is your decision. It comes when it comes. And if that means you're running out of time, then, there's nothing you can do about that.
Well, that's a very good point.
Have you decided if you're going to live in Colombia, or are you going to do like 6 months here, 6 months in Ecuador, or do you know what you're going to do?
Okay, well, first off, my 10 years in Ecuador's anniversary is March the 10th coming up. So I have to renew my cedula there. I don't want to lose my residency, my permanent residency in Ecuador. Then I want to get this document, get this visa complete. And, with that visa, that M visa, then being married, I'm able to get on her Sura insurance, which is very inexpensive.
Yeah, mine keeps going up, but it's hard to complain. I'm paying $172,000 a month. I long for the days when it was $120,000, but we're talking a few dollars.
Right.
It's like when you start living on this economy, you're thinking in those terms because what your income is, what the expenses are.
Right.
So you're not thinking of it as comparison to the U.S. And if I say that, then somebody will say, yeah, well, that's less than $50 in the U.S. It would be $1,000. Yeah, but I'm not living in the U.S. and I'm not working there.
Exactly.
That kind of income. I'm
Yeah.
here on my pathetic Social Security that amounts to diddly squat.
Yeah, so every penny is every penny. It's like in Ecuador, they have the social, Medicare or like Medicare situation, and you pay $88 a month. But that system is so screwed up, that it's hardly worth paying the $88 per month, and you probably need to go out and buy some private insurance. So, when I do go back, I'm going to buy some private insurance there. But, overall, right now, Ecuador is just not the place, in my opinion, right, is not the place to move to. Okay.
Well, it wasn't the place for me when I left there in, I think it was 2017. However, it's gotten a million times worse. It's crazy
Wow.
how bad it's gotten. I mean, you don't even have electric half the time.
Yeah, exactly. And they're predicting beginning in April during the dry season that there may be days with 12 to 14 hours without any power at all.
It's I gloated on this about a month ago when I was talking about what was happening there. And being as prideful as I am, I was bragging because I did a couple videos on that way back when I was living in Ecuador, predicting what was going to come because of how they made the Chinese made the dams and how they got all the cracks in them and the debt that they were going into. And I talked about how the Mexican cartels were moving in. It began in Esmeralda
Absolutely.
on the Colombian border and quickly moved to the prison in Guayaquil. And now it's spread all through Colombia. You could see that coming a number of years ago, and nobody was doing anything about it. And that was, the main reason I left was because of the pneumonia issues I was having in the altitude of Cuenca. I just couldn't stay there. But the secondary reasons was what I was seeing coming. Because initially I was going to do 6 months in Colombia and 6 months in Ecuador. Well, there's no point in doing 6 months in Ecuador when it's obvious what's coming down the road. And so I let my permanent residency lapse and my schedule and all that and just moved on.
Yeah. Well, Ecuador is only in the first few innings of this bad cartel situation. Ecuador is now considered the 7th most dangerous country in the world to live. In January, there were more homicides in the month than there ever has been in 1 month period. And it's, there are some pockets of places you could live there that, aren't touched by the cartels. It's like Baños Agua de Santa, a small tourist town. Yeah. You can walk around there anytime, day or night, have your cell phone out, in your hand. You don't have to worry. But, you go to Quito or you go to the coast, and it's really very, very dangerous. I don't know why anybody would want to live in Manta right now.
Yeah, you still have
there's a cruise line.
Loja is still relatively safe. Baños is relatively safe, but particularly on the coast, it's just exploding.
Well, exactly, but Loja is not safe, and Vilcabamba is not safe anymore, and the reason being is the areas, cities to the border of Peru. So, the cocaine comes from Peru, it comes from Colombia, they send it to the coast in Ecuador, and that's how they smuggle it out, of South America to the world.
I got a couple comments here. Mr. Zell, I think I know who that. I think that's my friend who's been living in Cali. Same thing I just went through. So he's talking about the visa and the FBI check. And then I got Nordic Mark says, I'm on EPS health insurance plan, which is like PPO plan. Good way to describe it. Which cover hospitalization, office visits, prescriptions, dental, vision, and a flat rate of $36 premium a month. Yeah, that's
Right.
about right.
But an expat cannot get that insurance now.
Well, there is a way, but technically you're correct. You can't just go and sign up. But there is a way once you get your visa and cedula taken care of, there is a way to do it. And then when you go to renew it, you have to cancel it, renew, and then get it again. You can do it, but I hear you, Cliff. Yeah,
Yeah.
I knew it was you, Mr. Cliff. Okay. So that's your story. I appreciate you coming on, telling everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, I don't think we've ever spoken. I don't know if you've ever seen my videos. You've been involved in things like the people you'd hang out with. I never went to and like that, but I always saw you on Facebook in the background, and you were the center of some stories, but I couldn't tell you what they were because I don't get involved in drama. But I was
Right.
curious,
Yeah.
Your experiences, Ecuador, which very similar to mine, Colombia, and what you went through with a visa, and coming up on Valentine's. I wanted to hear a little bit about your roast thing. I'll get roasted for propaganda or advertising or something. I don't care. I was curious about it. So I appreciate you coming on. I want to thank you, and maybe we'll have
Absolutely.
you on again for an update in a few months.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. And please let your audience know, go to www.yourroseguy.com and place your order. You got 8 days left. All right.
Okay, Mr. Marketer. We'll see you
Hasta
later.
luego. Ciao. Ciao.
There. Sorry for that little delay. I'm still trying to figure out how everything goes. Mike, why get your residence if it's so bad? Why go back, move on like Lauren did? It's so difficult to obtain. And when these things happen, it doesn't mean in 3 years it'll be that way. It might be worse. It might be better. It depends on who they get in office. If you get somebody aggressive that, puts his foot down and makes unpopular movements by taking military police action actively against it, when that happens, you're always going to have people in the fringes saying, oh, you're violating human rights and this and that and the other thing. But in the meantime, the citizens' human rights are violated daily. Colombia went through that when Uribe became president around, what was it, 2001 or 2002? I don't remember what year he became president. It was right around there. His first action was to mobilize the police and the military because most of the country was under control of some sort by the FARC and other groups. It was ridiculous. It was bad back then. Medellin was a city in prison. You could not leave. If you lived there, you couldn't leave from your barrio to the next without paying a toll to criminals. So if you worked outside that barrio, you had to get permission, pay a toll, and when you come back, do the same thing. People that are poor can't afford that, so they would lose jobs. Plus, you could not pass that barrier. I believe it was 6 o'clock. People were prisoners in their own home. And I remember this because I was here around that time, although I saw it on TV. So I don't remember if I saw it after I'd returned to the US or I saw it while I was here. But helicopters flew over Medellin. You had military, a bunch of them. I remember this scene with the military rappelling down the ropes, going block by block, shooting criminals, capturing criminals. People, that lived there stayed indoors. He was the hero of the country in those days. He beat back these criminals to the point where they almost didn't exist. His vice president Santos later became president. He ended up doing some peace agreement. Everything was pretty much in check. Then we get here's where I should be behind a paywall for where I could be uncensored. But essentially we get somebody in office who has ties and relations to those groups, and so they have been growing. You all know that my friend in Cauca, who's here now, had issues. I would love to be more specific. Again, this is why I'm thinking about this uncensored thing. I would love to tell you the whole story, but it's a dangerous area, and that entire department is in its own control. It has its own government. The Colombian government has no power there, and so it's very similar. If you want to leave, you've got to get permission. If you don't have permission, they see you at night, you just get shot. It's so in Ecuador, it's going to take somebody that's going to have to make these draconian moves, and then you have a fair amount of the populace that's going to, peace and love and all of that. Well, I'm all for that, but if the other side is just butchering you as you're as you're trying to give the peace and love, things just get worse. They take more and more power and control. So what happens in Ecuador? It depends. It could be cleared up in a year. Uribe did it here in a couple years. He had, I think they actually had to change the law. He ended up in office for 8 years because he had been so effective. Today, all the propaganda in the universities is this guy was a war criminal. He was like the worst of the worst. And, they paint him politically as Hitler and all of this kind of stuff. But if you talk to people today, the young people out of the university, I've done this, talk to a university person and they're going to tell me all about that. I'll say, what do your parents and grandparents have to say about him? Well, they love him. Yeah, because they were alive at the time and they know what was happening. Listen to them. Stop listening to the propaganda. Tommy says, El Salvador got in a president that cleaned up the criminals in a short time recently. Exactly. And nobody wants to have that kind of thing. And it's a concern to cede that sort of power to the people in control because absolute power corrupts absolutely. On the other hand, you don't clean those things up without it. I mean, Mexico is a great example. They've been dancing around it forever and they just continue growing. The cartel issues in Ecuador and in Colombia are actually controlled out of Mexico. The days of the name we will not mention here in Colombia and the people in Ecuador, those days of it being controlled, it's all managed and controlled. The power is centered in Mexico because the cartels in Mexico have we'll call it a GDP greater than most countries in the world. And so it makes it hard to bring them down, but they have grown and grown and grown. And now their influence is spreading. Colombia was rather inert and Mexico came in and revived it. And the Colombian government just sat by and watched it happen. Ecuador, there was a time when it was considered one of the safer countries in South America. When I lived there, it was considered that, but you saw it escalating. So anyway, Mike, okay, now I understand his thinking and potential for change at some point. What are the advantages of Ecuador? Well, to me, there's very few. And it's not that I want to bash Ecuador. I enjoyed my time there because I made some good friends. And I'm not one to try to make friends or be social. I've got maybe 5 here, gringos here in Cuenca, or actually not Cuenca, in Armenia and around Colombia. And as far as local people in Colombia, maybe 30 and maybe only 5 or 6 that I would actually consider friends. The others more acquaintances. In Ecuador, I don't think a single gringo friend, but I had about a 30 person or so circle of Ecuadorian friends. And what I enjoyed was time with them, although most of the time I spent alone, but When I would do social things, it was with them. One of my good friends owned a hostel, restaurant, pool club, all of this in one. And he'd lived for years in Texas as a jeweler and went back. He was born in Ecuador, went back. His family was there, and he opened his green business. He's still there. He's still doing well. I would watch Super Bowls there with him. Those things bring fond memories. The country of Ecuador, there's a lot of stuff that you have to close your eyes to. And after a while, it's just hard to. You walk down the sidewalk and you got swinging live electrical wires. I watched a woman get caught with one of those, windy day, zapped her. She flew off the sidewalk in front of a bus. The bus barely stopped in time. That's not a one-off. You see it all over the place. They don't know how to do electricity there, and they'll have live wires just hanging. You walk down the sidewalk, and the sidewalk will just cave because the concrete is so inferior. It's made so cheaply that it just falls apart. You walk down the sidewalk and you end up on your face because the sidewalk decided to give away in that moment. And then you got potholes everywhere in the sidewalk. It's dangerous. When they did the Tranvia, that train that runs around Cuenca, they went through and they had a lot of infrastructure to build. They had curbs and sidewalks and things to set up for this Tranvia. In 1 year, it all crumbled and had to be redone because the concrete was so inferior. They don't have building standards. Like here, we have building standards that are very strict. They're earthquake standards. You don't have buildings fall apart. You don't have sidewalks fall apart. Things are very well made here. In Ecuador, everything falls apart. What are the reasons to be there? I don't know. I could tell you that your first year, you'll love it because of the 1400s Spanish theme, the buildings, the churches. You're living in a postcard. But then after a while, it just wears on you. Turtle has always had a great statement for that, and I forget what it is. It just gets old. So, yeah, I don't know what to say about it. Residency. Well, the advantage of the residency is that you no longer have to get your visas or in Ecuador. Here, you still have to, but there, he just has to renew his ID. If you don't renew it, then everything is over. So if he decides in 5 years, maybe everything's straightened out there to go back, you'll have to go through that entire process again. It's expensive and it sucks. Mao Ganzo. I don't care if Bukele is corrupt. The country has gotten increasingly better. Colombia has always had corrupt politicians. Nothing has ever changed. Well, corruption exists everywhere, in every government. It's just a matter of how well the governments hide it. But even when you have a situation like Bukele, you're going to have his detractors create stories that may or may not be true. You know, he's going to be. Everybody loves to call somebody Hitler. It's just you're racist and you're Hitler and you're this, that, and the other thing. They're going to paint whatever picture. They're going to create whatever propaganda that will, sway people. Although the world seems to kind of, they've been hearing that for so much. Why are we still talking about Hitler? I mean, there are other people. Maybe we'll call him Stalin. It's like, what about Pol Pot? He was maybe worse. But anyway, Tommy, that is a part that makes me think that some politicians are paid off to look the other way. Well, of course, that's the only way the cartels can do what they do. Well, in Colombia or in Mexico in particular, we know that's a fact. But there's a reason for it, and you can't look at it and say things aren't always as black and white. So let's say you have a politician, and it turns out he's accepting money from a cartel and looking the other way. All right, so we can paint the picture that it's just evil, or we can understand that he's caught up in something that he has no control over. There's a Spanish saying, plata o plomo, money or lead. You're given the option. You take the money, you take the bribe, and you do what we say, or lead, obviously. So, I mean, that's a known saying, and it's a known saying because it's real. It's one of the tactics. So let's say you're the mayor of a city sitting in Mexico, and this cartel has all the power. They have 3 times as many guns as your police force, and they come up to you and say, plata or plomo, what are you going to do? You say, well, let me call the national government. Well, the national government who could send backup, is that person corrupt or not? Can you take that chance? Even if they do, will they get there in time? Maybe the fact that you had to think about it was enough for them to say, oh, it's plomo. So it takes a concerted effort with a lot of force and power, like Uribe did here in Colombia, where I mentioned, I painted the little picture of Medellin, but at the same time that was happening all over Colombia. He mobilized everybody, and they went to work. It was such a show of force that even the people that were on the Plata side kind of had to go around with the crowd because the show of force that Uribe put up basically rescued them. You know, they weren't out there on their own. Corruption. Wise than Hitler? Try the Catholic Church. Well, I'm not sure what that means, but yeah, I won't argue with your last point. Obviously, Cuenca, upon arriving, the antiquities are wonderful. Within 3 to 4 years, the antiquities just become old. It becomes time to move on. Yeah, it's it's something. If you haven't been there and gone through those phases, it's pretty hard to describe. As you know, I've been to a lot of different countries. I lived in Japan for 3 years. So it's not like it's no, but Ecuador was unique. It was unique in your first impressions, your 6-month impressions. But at some point, for me, it really started to show up after about a year. It's something different than the rose-colored glasses effect, because that's like you go on vacation, you want to live there, but in a month you realize it's not the way you saw it. This is something a little bit different, and I would have to give it some thought how to accurately describe it, but it's there. It took me about a year. It takes a lot of people through 2, 3, 4 years before they get to the point where they realize this is not the place I should be living. And that's aside if there were no crime. It's not about the crime. Then you had the crime. Then you had the electric blackouts. Then you start adding in all the other things that are going on, the political assassinations, all of this kind of stuff. Wait, sounds like I'm describing the U.S. last year. But anyway, it just gets to the point where maybe it's not the place to go. It's certainly not the place that international lying promoted and sold $3,000 seminars to convince people to go live there. That's what made me start making videos, was that bogus propaganda. And that was when I liked Ecuador. I hadn't been there very long, and I hadn't got to my final conclusions. I just recognized right up front that they were just painting a picture that just wasn't true. You can have something nice, doesn't mean it's paradise. You can have something that you're happy to live in, because every place on this planet has its negative aspects. But they had no negative aspects. Everything was perfect, and people craved it. They wanted to go there, and they went there by the tens of thousands. And they picked up on these seminars $3,000 to $5,000 for these seminars that they would generally hold in Central America for Ecuador. Made me start doing videos. All right. I love how this is showing me all the chats in one location. That's great. I will remind you, I've gone long because I just start blabbing. I will remind you that next week I want to have 2 or 3 people to bring in our little boxes and have a conversation about something. I also would like to test out the 1 minute you have a comment. So people that know me, send me off an email or send me a WhatsApp that you're interested, and I will send you a link and you can comment on anything you want. Just make sure that it's clean and appropriate so that I can hear it. I do get the screen ahead of time, and if it's not appropriate, then I won't be able to put it on the screen. Of course, even though I'm not monetized on YouTube, I still get notices every single video how I can't be monetized because of one thing or another. So even if I were monetized, I couldn't be monetized. Here in Rumble, I've yet to get a notice for that. Everything, I know how to self censor. You wouldn't think so, but I do it. And so here in Rumble, I'm having absolutely no issues. I didn't read the campaigns today just because I didn't want to interrupt him as he was going. Next week, maybe I'll try that. I didn't know how it worked in the past. These ad campaigns, these ad reads. I think I understand now, and I think that I could pick up enough money to cover expenses if I do 1 or 2 a week over the course of a month. I think it will at least certainly help defray. So I'm gonna try that. I lose certain abilities, like when I get a contribution, I don't get noticed and it doesn't go up on the screen automatically like before, and that bothers me a little bit because I like to give you guys a heads up. I can go click in my email and see if anything came in. George, thank you. And somebody else here, if it's going to let me. Oh, Renee. And Renee, thank you very much. Renee from Belgium. So I thank you very much. Before, it would just automatically come up on the screen. And so that was kind of nice. I lose that ability. I lose the ability of the frame around it. I don't know how necessary that is. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how we go. It is a lot simpler software. The one that I use normally is extremely complicated.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
Oh, Alexa is triggered. Mike. Oh, wait. We got some things here. Robert. Hey, Robert, how you doing? Catholic Church supported the ELN liberation philosophy. Very sad. Well, you're exactly right. There's a whole story of that. That's a story. Again, I would love to tell that exact story. That's an important part of Colombia's history, as a matter of fact. It still exists today. And the liberation philosophy is toxic beyond belief. But that would be something that would have to be in the uncensored paywall thing. Let me know if you guys are interested in that. You may not be. And if not, we get to these kind of topics, and I have information I would love to tell you guys, particularly, if you're considering living here in Ecuador or whatever, but I have to stop myself short of certain things. Sorry, meant worse than Hitler. The Catholic Church, Inquisition, witchcraft, their hands are stained. Well, yeah. In general, I agree. I can go off on some of these things. That's a problem when you spend most of your life studying history and going down the rabbit holes. You end up with way too many opinions. Mike, great explanation. Thank you. Malta is a great place to retire. Still here for a while. I hear it is. To me, what would bother me, I've never been there, but it's like, it's all, there's no, from block to block, you don't have greenery. That would bother me. I love the fact here that if I walk down the block, I'm walking through half of it is forest. Then throughout Armenia, there's just forests. There's these little enclaves. You'll have a little bamboo forest that you can kind of go off and explore. There's tree-lined streets, and it reminds me of kind of the Northeast U.S. I love just being totally surrounded in greenery. And in Malta, having never been there, but seeing various pictures, it's featured in movies and things like that, it looks like I'd be living in concrete, and that would bug me a bit. But I guess there it's all about being on the ocean. Turtle, just as you printed Hugh's email address, can you show the contributions on the top as an overlay? No, because those things require setup previously. So while it's coming in, first of all, I don't get notice of it. So I would have to stop, go take a look, see if anything came in, go in, set it up. In the meantime, what's going on? You guys just kind of hanging out, do. So even if I'm quick, 2 or 3 minutes of dead air, then I could put it up. But then while I'm doing that, maybe something else came in and I didn't know it. It's just not practical. I can't do it. Depends where you live. In Malta, well, it's not that big, is it? I don't know. I need to avoid going down other rabbit holes. Because this is what gets me started. It's like something I don't know. Let me dig until I know everything I could possibly know about it. Okay. Just as you printed, got that. All right. Been through the chats, running 15 minutes overtime. So I think we're going to end it here. Again, please act on the questions. If you can join me for next week, if you're interested in doing the 1-minute comments, please send me off email or WhatsApp telling me that. I want to do it, but I can't do it unless I got a couple people that raise their hand. They're willing to help me out. Send a message to software company, add that feature in an update. No, I don't know why. They have their own schedule and it's planned out for the next couple of years, and they'll accept it and they'll send a reply. They don't act on it, because I had sent 2 years ago, I had sent that. Last year I sent it again. I get very nice replies. I talked to somebody, not part of the company, but is in live communication with them because he's highly placed. And he explained to me they have their agenda of what they're trying to do, and they can't cram in all these little things. So it's something they're aware of, but who knows when it's going to happen. What do we have here? Sebastian, thumbs up. I took a picture of that building. I forgot to put it on here, Sebastian. It's looking really nice. Do you participate in the coffee meetings? No, I don't anymore. I explained this already, and honestly, I don't care. But because somebody created a rumor and they decided that they were going to police things. They decided out of the big group that were going, it was just a couple people who decided that I should be uninvited. I should not attend these coffee meetings that I started. And so I got a message telling me, don't show up. Well, of course I could show up. But the truth of it is, I don't like those things generally. If I want to do a meeting with somebody, I like it to be with a couple people that I know and like and appreciate. Getting more and more people, having 20, 25 people, I would go to those only to support it, the idea of it, but I would only have conversation with a couple people. I went for them. And it's not that I was trying to be rude, but I just didn't really pay attention. And it becomes kind of cliquish. And if you're not part of the clique, you get people that are just kind of backbiting. And so, you don't want to join in the reindeer games, and maybe we'll start working against you. And that kind of drama is just nauseating to me. And the fact that adults think they can control other adults' behavior. And the worst part is nobody even asked me. I would have been able to tell them exactly what was going on, but nobody cared to ask. They just wanted to, feel the drama and the power. And it's like, that's why I don't get involved in these things. It's why I don't like those kinds of groups. So like last week, I met up with a couple people that I like. They came with their wives, and Shariq went with me, and we had a nice lunch, and we were there for a couple hours. The week before, something similar. Somebody who I really like. His wife is amazing. He's awesome. Good people. And we went and had a nice lunch, and I think we were there for like 4 hours just hanging out, talking. See, for me, that's cool. You add in 20, 25 people, what are you going to do? You can't talk to them all. And half of them you don't want to talk to, because just like I rub people the wrong way, people rub me the wrong way. So it's like, so anyway, that's the way that is. Send a message to the software company. I had the feature. Oh, I read that. Sorry. Participate in the coffee meetings. Bro, you are a legend. No, I mean, the photograph. Yeah, well, I'm not a legend because I forgot to put it on here. I meant to. Support with membership. Oh, that's Stream Elements. Yeah, it doesn't even have the right address on there. It's Grand Columbia 1. It changed at some point. I'll have to figure out how to change that. That was set up like 3-4 years ago. I don't even know how to get to it anymore. All right. Didn't I say I was going to end? So send me those emails. Help me for next week. And media, how do we get to the end here? All right, here we go. Here we go for the outro. I will see you next week. I'm looking forward to it. And please help me out here. Mike Jarvis, Rob's in Medellin this weekend. But Rob, you'd be good. Turtle, my buds, help me out here. Ciao.
Bye.